As promised, I have returned a day later, so hey, I'm doing good so far. This is Cami, and I am the creator and producer of an upcoming film, Wild Justice. I'm taking this time on a regular basis, to educate you and to give you some information on what this film is going to be about: wildlife crime and corruption. So I'm taking segments and going to educate you on what I have been learning and what I want to showcase in my film. So let's get started. Corruption is not just a side issue in wildlife crime. It is the air that wildlife crime breathes. From remote forests to airports, from field rangers to high-level politicians, corruption underpins the illegal wildlife trade, enabling poaching, laundering, transport, and impunity. In this video today, we're going to unpack how corruption facilitates the entire supply chain, and we'll also zoom in on how this plays out in the United States, including trophy hunting and political influence. And that's what my first film is going to be based on: the roles that the United States plays with wildlife crime and corruption. Some of the things that we're going to talk about is going to be the corruption, wildlife trafficking, so poaching and harvesting. On the ground, corrupt practices allow poachers access. Field rangers or park staff may be bribed or coerced to provide information: the location of animals, patrol schedules, or simply what happens most of the time, they look the other way. Misuse of funds is another issue when protected area budgets are siphoned off or mismanaged. Agencies are under-resourced and unable to patrol large remote areas. As one authoritative report states, corruption is the air that wildlife crime breathes. It is one of the key enablers of widespread and large-scale wildlife trafficking. Let's talk about the transport and laundering. Fraudulent documents, license, certificates. Wildlife product traffickers often slip illegal goods into legal trade by using false permits, declaring wild-caught animals are captive bred. This happens a lot in the United States. Corrupt border, customs, transports officials at airports, seaports, and land borders. Officials may be bribed to allow shipments to pass unchecked or misdeclared. Special economic zones and weak regulatory zones can become hubs for wildlife products because of minimal oversight. And then we get into law enforcement and justice undermined. Corruption in police, prosecutors, cases don't even get pursued. Evidence disappears. Officials accept bribes to delay or drop investigations. Seized contraband vanishes. Ivory and other products confiscated from criminals may leak back into the market through inside jobs. As one U.S. government report notes, wildlife trafficking threatens the rule of law, enables criminal networks to operate with relative impunity. Along with, I want to discuss how the laws are so relaxed. So the cartels have figured out that, of course, if you're going to traffic humans, guns, and drugs, and you get caught, you're going to be punishment. You're going to pay for that deed. But if you are trafficking wildlife and wildlife products, you will find out that it's a slap on their wrist, but they make the same amount of money. It's a $20 billion plus year that is coming in each year. Some are saying it's as high as 23 billion. So why not? High-level political influence. Politically connected individuals or elites may use influence to shield traffickers, bypass regulation, or steer the enforcement system. Something that is going on right now, today, in the United States with our current politicians that are in the White House. Corporate gifting, luxury wildlife products, rhino horns, for example, sometimes function as bribes or status symbols, reinforcing elite networks of corruption and demand. So far, we've looked at corruption enabling rule broadly across the global trade. Now, let's focus on how this issue shows up in the United States and what my film is going to be about in a fictional, entertaining story. Often thought of as a destination or transit for illicit wildlife, and also with unique domestic dynamics around trophy hunting and lobbying. And there's a certain group that I like to discuss because they're huge in America and they bribe and fund our politicians. So let me dig a little deep into that corruption and wildlife trafficking in the United States. The U.S. is both a destination and transit point for illegal wildlife and wildlife products. Actually, we're the number one country for the wildlife product and trade. Domestic trafficking also occurs. Major U.S. cities serve as hubs where trafficked wildlife is transferred, sold, or laundered. A lot of them are sold to be bred so they can make additional money, have hunting ranches. And there's just so much I have to tell you. Can't do it all in one video, so that's why I'm doing a series. U.S. agencies such as U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the U.S. Customs and Border Protection are actively engaged in combating wildlife trafficking, but guess what? There's corruption there as well. Corruption linkage in the U.S. context. So, documented fraud and mislabeling in U.S. cases, traffickers have used forged inspection certificates, false permits, and misdeclared species to transport animals or animal parts. Weak enforcement, especially here in the U.S., resource constraints, and sometimes regulatory capture means oversight can be ineffective. While high-level corruption in the U.S. may look different than in source countries, fewer outright bribes at larger scale, the interplay of influence, lobbying, and regulatory gaps create similar enabling conditions. I do have a few case examples. We had I think it was in the 1990s, a U.S. bird smuggler, Tony Silva. Silva pleaded guilty to smuggling rare parrots into the U.S., exploiting weak controls and transporting animals in false shipments. I'm sure he just was served a fine. I think the most I have found in some of my latest research is 3 years in prison, if that. Example 2 was the wildlife trafficking case, which was recent. A Montana man used tissue and testicles from wild sheep, which is a protective species, to breed giant hybrids for private hunting ranches. This is huge in the United States, especially Texas. And I believe Safari Club International is a big part of this because they have a huge members of hunters. And, now it's not about hunting regulations and teaching the proper protocols and regulations. It's about the amount that you kill. You're rewarded money and guns and these elite hunting trips to Africa and having these private hunting ranches. That is a multi-million-dollar business. And United States is booming with this. There's contests where you win lots of money and guns and prizes for killing the most animals. You can even torture them during this kill. We saw an incident in regards to that with the man torturing a wolf that he was killing. And all this seems to be legal in the United States. And once again, I'm going off script because it just makes my blood boil. Let's see, what else did we have? We had California couple was convicted after a plane chat leads to animal trafficking bust. People are doing this in large volumes because they know if they get caught, the punishment is minimal, but the return is huge. So let's talk about that trophy hunting, lobbying, and regulatory influence. And this is really what I want to focus on. The U.S.-based trophy hunting lobby is large, influential, the Safari Club International, is a key player. Safari Club International profile shows it spent nearly $960,000 on U.S. federal lobbying in 2024. They have an office right across the street and made over $415,000 in contributions with their bullshit and their lies. Safari Club International backed candidates they reportedly win over 90% of the time in certain election cycles. Let's just spell it out. Republicans, indicating significant political influence. And boy, did they hit it big with the Trump family, because the Trump boys are huge trophy hunters, even of an endangered species, which I've shown you in the past photos of their kills. Critics argue that Safari Club International and similar entities mobilize funds to block policies that would restrict trophy imports or strengthen wildlife trade regulations. This is huge. This is what they do, and they knew Trump would be an easy president because of his sons and their love of trophy hunting, that he will do anything that they ask. According to one advocacy group, although Safari Club International claims to promote conservation, which once again is bullshit, only a low percentage of revenue actually reaches local communities, and major profits flow to administrative expenses or to the connected elites. That is a proven fact. As one overview puts it, pro-trophy hunting organizations have long used their wealth, their power, and privilege to lobby for more hunting rights and less regulations or restrictions on trophy imports. Why does this matter, and why does it piss me off? When political influence shifts regulation in favor of less oversight, for example, easier trophy imports, and I can go on about how Obama had blocked this, Trump reopens it, and during that time when it was blocked, people, Safari Club International, and people in Texas decided, hey, we'll have our own Africa hunts here in Texas. We don't have to go to Africa. We can breed them here and have those enclosed hunting here in America and make millions of dollars, and then lie about how it's for conservation. So while U.S. corruption might not always look like the blatant bribery, the regulatory capture, lobbying, revolving door, and influence exerts by hunting trade factions functionally play a parallel role to corruption in some countries. What can be done and called to action? Strengthen transparency and auditing of permit license systems, both in source country and destination countries. Enhanced scrutiny of transport hubs, special economic zones, border control points for wildlife shipments, improved training, and anti-corruption controls. Boost investigative capacity and prosecution of corruption linked to wildlife trafficking, uncover bribery, document fraud, conclusion. In destination countries like the U.S., ensure lobbying and political influence do not erode regulatory safeguards, promote transparency, and how hunting trophy import policy is shaped. We got to get back to that. Raise public awareness of how corruption enables wildlife crime so that consumers, policymakers, and activists understand the link. Remember, they are working with cartels, the same organizations that traffic humans, guns, and drugs. Call to action. Again, ask yourself, when I buy animal-derived products or support hunting trophy imports, what systems am I implicitly trusting? Advocate for legislation and policies that tighten scrutiny of wildlife trade, both domestically and globally. Support NGOs and investigative journalism that expose corruption in wildlife supply chains. But guess what? Not all NGOs are legit. They have a lot of corruption itself. Just look, if you have an NGO in any way that has taken money from Safari Club International, they're corrupt. Do your work, do your research. Share this video, raise awareness, and push for transparent, accountable conservation and wildlife trade system. Corruption is the linchpin that allows wildlife crime to flourish. Without bribery, collusion, weak oversight, and influence operations, many of our illegal wildlife supply chains simply wouldn't work. Whether it's poachers bribing rangers, shady permits, illegal shipments, or powerful lobby groups, which that's what I want to focus on a lot on, shaping policies in destinations like the US, the system of corruption enables a loss of wildlife globally, which in return affects our planet. It affects our future. If we're serious about ending wildlife trafficking, fighting corruption must be central. Thank you for watching. Please, you know my spiel. Like, subscribe, share this video, and join the fight for wildlife justice. Also reach out at producer@wildlifecrimeseries.com if you're interested in being part of the project, or if you just want to simply learn more about it and, to let me keep you in the loop of the progress of the film, or even let you be part of it. Just reach out anytime. Thank you for your time, and I hope to keep it up. It's kind of like exercising. You set this goal that you want to do something every day or multiple times a week, and you do it for a while, and then you lose that momentum and you fall in your old rut. So I'm hoping, once again, I'm doing this. The last time I failed a few years ago when I tried this. So I'm going to commit to you because this is very important to me, and it should be important to you. Thanks again, and I hope to see you again in a couple of days.